Okay, so today we're going to talk about one of the important things when you're working with a buyer. Part of, I don't know if it's really part of the due diligence process, but part of the selection criteria is protecting your client's interest in this process. Big one is the home in a flood zone or not? Okay, so I've got some tools to kind of educate you on, familiarize yourself with, so that you understand completely how to help them, provide information to them to make decisions. Now, the caveat here is you're not a flood zone expert. You're not qualified to give them legal advice. Just like things, like per our conversation earlier this morning about schools, you're here to provide them information, give them the tools and the resources that they need to make the decisions that they want to make, okay? So you got to caveat that with this. Here's some information, but if you're asking me for legal advice, I'm not an expert in it, but I at least know just enough to be dangerous. That's what we're talking about today. Okay, so when you are evaluating a property, everybody's familiar with the MLS. This just happened to be a property that I showed yesterday, and one of the major criteria that my client was concerned about is there a flood risk? Is there a flood hazard? Is it in a flood zone? Okay, so the first way to look is everybody's very familiar with the listing tab, but there's also these other tabs across the top, and there is the flood map. Has everybody seen this before? Did you know this was here?
I've never clicked on it.
Okay, it's here, and it provides you a map. Not much more than just a map, okay? I will tell you that this is linking into another system that we're going to talk about, and there are other counties where the flood map that you see up there is blacked out or is grayed out because it's not a live link, okay? So if it's not there, I'm going to show you another source that you can go to find it, okay? But if you at least, in this case, have a map of property, and you can see that this is in flood zone A, an area inundated by a 100-year flood is depicted with this blue area right here. And you can kind of get an idea. It's kind of difficult with the visual quality of the projection system, but you can kind of get a better idea for it. Sir?
So when you see terms like 100-year flood, 5-year flood, that's kind of like the chances within 100 years that you would have a flood.
That is exactly right. Yep. So a 100-year flood zone is once in 100 years, you have a probability of a flood happening.
Gotcha.
And to be clear, I'm going to show you another source that words it in a different way. And you'll see how it's slightly different based off of where you're at, okay? So that is one way to look at it, but this is not exactly a format or something official that you can present to your client to show that you're doing your due diligence to help protect their interest. This is just one page amongst many on an MLS page, okay? So now we're gonna go and find a different source, and for some reason, okay, so everybody write this one down. map.georgiadfirm.com. Put this one in your bookmarks under the ones that you use most frequently. I use this all the time, okay? map.georgiadfirm.com. It's free, you don't have to subscribe to it. It is the Georgia Flood Map Program website where anybody, Tom, Dick, or Harry, can access an address or a coordinate and determine if it is in the flood zone, okay? I will freely admit to you the site is a little bit clunky. It's not exactly super user-friendly, but with a little bit of some experience, and most people can figure this out. When you first open it up, it's got the little, accept the terms thing on here, and then you come over and you plug in your address. So just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to look at the same property that we looked at before. Sorry, I'm having to do this over my shoulder here. Okay, and so it, granted the scale is way off, but it actually did find the address and it gives you some options. So the easiest one and the one that is the prettiest for your client's sake is the flood map. And then it brings up this little deal right here down at the bottom. Like I said, it's kind of clunky, but you just generate the panel and it brings up a nice, pretty little thing like this. And the question is, why is... And wouldn't you know, it's not exactly... I think I fat fingered the address. Hang on a second, guys. "806 Fairview Road, Northwest, Calhoun." See, that's just so weird. Okay, here it is. It's got the point in the wrong place. The property is actually right down here. For some reason, it did the longitude and latitude instead of the address. All right, we're gonna go back to scratch. Now I can't even find my cursor. Hang on, guys, I'm gonna make this a little bit easier. Okay, sorry, let me do this one more time. 806 Fairview Road, Northwest. The flood risk snapshot and then generate the report is what you want. There, it did it the right way. Okay, so this is the property. This was the driveway that I showed, and this is where it came back at. The nice thing about this is you can zoom in and you can see exactly where the line is. Look at where that house sits.
Half on, half off.
Half on, half off. Then you've got the details over here on the right side, high risk zone A, which if you look at you've got all the legends down here at the bottom. So you see you're in the 1% flood zone. And so what it actually says up there, if you read, is that it is a 1% annual chance of flooding. So if you think about it, a 100-year flood zone, that's 100%. Every year you've got a 1% chance of it flooding in that particular area, okay? So now that begs the question, if your client goes, okay, if that house is in the flood zone, are they paying flood insurance? Is that something that I need to be concerned about? It could be. The short answer is we don't know. A logical conclusion from this is to ask the listing agent, is the home in a flood zone? Do you know, did the current sellers, the current owners, are they paying flood insurance? That is probably the biggest determining factor for whether or not your client that is buying that house needs to have flood insurance for the house. And the reason you all want to avoid that is flood insurance is expensive, very high. Okay.
And only the government sells it,
What's that?
right? Only the government sells it.
The government guarantees it. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I like how they say nature doesn't read flood maps. It means
Yep, you're absolutely right. Nate, I was actually gonna, thank you, you're plugging it for me. Nature doesn't read flood maps. Neither do you, for that matter. Okay? I don't read flood maps. I'm providing you what I can access through the systems and resources that I have as a real estate agent. Ultimately, it's a decision whether or not you move forward with this house or not is completely up to you. I can ask the current seller if they have any information about this. In this particular case, I did. The agent said seller has not ever paid flood insurance and has no knowledge of whether or not their house is in a flood zone or not. Okay, that may be fine. However, it will get caught by the underwriter in the loan approval process. Okay. So there are other properties that I've done. In fact, I've got, you know what, let's just go there. I'm gonna pull up another address for you. I'm just gonna go straight into the Georgia D firm map, y'all. All right, so this is a property that I did recently, 111 Eubanks Court, Woodstock. Flood risk snapshot, generate the report. Okay, so this was a listing that I had, it's been a little over a year ago in Woodstock. Notice Mill Creek back here. Oops, sorry guys. And notice the menu down here. You are now in a floodway high risk zone right near the creek, and the blue is obviously the major areas. But now let's zoom in a little bit on the house. Notice where the location of the house is. This particular case, they refied the house. These owners had been in this house for 20, 25 years, never paid flood insurance until they did a refi 2 or 3 years ago. The underwriter for the refi said, ooh, your house is that corner, that back corner of the house, literally right there. So see this, the square of the house? That tiny little corner is in a flood zone. They had to start paying flood insurance.
Was it worth
Okay.
the refund?
So now I had to list the house as being in a flood zone. Turns out it didn't really have that big of an effect, but it can have an effect. But this is a perfect example. I wasn't qualified to say it is or isn't in a flood zone, but I did have to disclose when an agent came to me and said, "Hey, is the sellers currently paying flood insurance?" Yeah, they are. Because there's a tiny little corner of the house that is. Okay? Questions, sir?
What is the measurement that is considered a flood, or the height of the water?
That's what I was thinking too.
Short answer is don't know, and I don't know that it matters all that much.
About 20 years ago, we had a monsoon for like 6 weeks in a row, and I think like caskets like floated down the Chattahoochee River, like things flooded that have never flooded before. And I think that's when they redid the maps.
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember the date,
2009?
In a flood?
maybe.
And the short answer is what the level has to be doesn't matter. Theoretically, people smarter than you and me have figured that out and have mapped it and done the geography and geology of a particular area, know what the elevations are. The technology behind doing all that is way over my head. I'm looking at a map and I'm providing information to my client for them to make the decisions. Okay. Also, take on a partner with the lender. If you see something like this and your client is interested in that house but has concerns about it, work with the lender. Send the lender, hey, I've determined it looks like it's possible that some portion of the property may or may not be in a flood zone. Do you have resources to be able to have your underwriter take a look at this and determine if it's worthwhile for us to pursue further? Okay? So don't make decisions in a vacuum. Use your partners, use your lender, and use the resources that you have access to. Other questions? Quick and dirty. All right, everybody. Have a great day.